How to help your stylists leverage ChatGPT to further their career. Hi, I am Kayla Swanson, and I am your host of High Performance Salon Academy's Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. And I get the pleasure of having on with me today our CEO of High Performance Salon Academy, Jason Everett. What's up, Jason?
Yo.
What's up,
What's going on?
man?
Glad to be
Hanging out
on
with you.
today. Excited
It's
to talk
been a
about,
hot minute.
dude, my favorite subject, ChatGPT, pretty much anything. We should be in for a really fun show today. I'm excited about it and looking forward to helping people like mind melt with their ChatGPT
Literally.
even better.
It's like we've done a lot of trainings. We've like had a lot of conversations about this, and every time we have them, there's just a new thing. And I know you are so deep into ChatGPT and learning so many things. Like you just have like a well of knowledge. And so I love opening the conversation to share how people could just utilize it in a way that they don't. I mean, it's more popular now, but there's so many ways that you don't even realize.
There's plenty of people using it. I mean, I think if you're a salon and you're not using it, you're way behind. So if you're on here, shame on you. Just kidding. But by the way, you could use a bunch of different types of AI. We're just talking about chat specifically because I think that's the most widely accepted form of AI that most salon owners are using that is accessible, and they're doing it. Everybody's calling it like chatty, my little chat buddy, my little chat
therapist.
Right. Like whatever version of that you're using. And I think we in the Academy are using chat very differently than a lot of other people. And I just think it's worth telling people what's going on. And there's a right and a wrong way to do it. I've done several courses on AI. I continue to get asked to do courses on AI for salons specifically. And if you think of it this way, if you could get your staff to actually use ChatGPT on their own without you prompting them, for them to learn, right, for them to learn on their own and have a really incredible experience with it, why would you not? I think there's a lot of power in that. It might eliminate some of the coaching burden for you to like smack people around. So I think that's a really
literally. And the autonomy that's going to come with that, and then just people getting more comfortable and realizing that there are resources out there for them to, it's even like touches into like encouraging them to build their own career too, and not just rely on you to provide all of that and get them that autonomy. So I'm excited. Let's do this. ChatGPT has changed my career. So let's dive into this.
Yeah, same.
So what would you say would be like the number one, and even starting that conversation, because I know people are going to be all over the board, whether they have their, like, oh yeah, we use that all the time. So let's talk to the people first on like, oh, we haven't really opened that conversation. Like where would they start in like sharing ChatGPT with their teams and getting that ball rolling?
Yeah. So a couple things. I mean, if you're not really using it, I mean, I think most stylists are not always the most tech savvy people. And I don't mean to insult any stylist by saying that, but I would just say, most stylists are not working on a computer 24/7. So they're not as tech savvy as somebody who's sitting in front of a computer. That's what I mean by that. But stylists usually have their phone available and around, unless you have some rule that says like, don't have your phone on the floor. But there are now starting to be, AI resources that like you can literally just upload a picture of your guest and actually have them change their whole hairstyle and frame out what types of styles they're working with. And like, there's so many cool things that are out there. And of course there's apps that exist that, that people are using specifically to do those. It's kind of like filters, but in real time. Think of it like a Snapchat filter or an Instagram filter that you can use in reality to be like, hey, I want to know what my hair looks like with this color or that color or with this certain style, or what if I had longer hair or shorter hair. And that's a small example that I think a lot of people are like, yeah, it sounds cool, but like, I don't know how I really integrate that into my consultations. And for a lot of people, and I'm just giving you some basic examples, there's a lot of people too that like, if you upload a picture of your client before you actually do their hair and run them through their service, you can actually ask about their skin tone and their complexity and the style of thing that you're trying to see. And I think a lot of people are like, well, Jason, aren't I supposed to be the expert in all of those things? And I go, you are, with what I call a bionic enhancement. Like if I could just imagine this way, like if you have 20/20 vision, means you have perfect vision. But if I had better vision, instead of having 20/20 vision, I can't remember which way it goes, like 20/40 or whatever it is. It's like, what if I had better vision than the average person? What if I had supersonic hearing? What if I had better vision? Would I be of an advantage? Like if I had better hearing than you, Kayla, would I have an advantage over you? Yes. If I had better vision, would I have a better advantage over you? Yes. What if I had an AI enhancement, which is called ChatGPT, in my pocket at all times, so that I could write up something for a guest and make sure they were good to go? Like, for example, what if I said, hey, I'm going to record the entire session for you and all the things I'm teaching you while we're here. At the end of it, I'm going to provide you with a complete summary and a written checklist of what I want you to do with your hair between now and the next time you're here. Like, if you would have had to sit and write up a 2-page report for every guest that sat in your chair on what you recommended and what their care regimen is and what they want to do, like that would have taken forever. But now, even when you're in the appointment, you're like, hey, I'm going to film this real quick, and I'm going to take that video, I'm going to upload it to ChatGPT for you, and it's going to give you a complete rundown on how to manage your hair and what to do and what your suggestions are and what you're doing. Like, it's really powerful. And I know I'm giving you some general tools and some general things you can use with ChatGPT, but like, I think that by being able to give that person that bionic enhancement and allow them to start using it in different ways, that's really incredible, right? Now, what if you could do this? What if you also upload the exact same photograph to a photograph of before and after somebody's hair, and you upload it and you say, hey, I've got this really incredible after photo. I don't want you to change anything about this photo, but I do want you to build out an entire social media, post schedule for me over the next couple of weeks I could use with this hair and a couple other photos. Can you give me some framework on how to do that? And then let ChatGPT build that out for you. So remember, when I say bionic enhancement, all of a sudden, it's like you have an assistant. Like, think about this. What stylist that had the capacity to have an assistant wouldn't want one? Like, if I told you you had a free person working side by side that would help you and grab all the items for you and take care of it, of course you'd say yes. Yeah. So what if you had a social media assistant? What if you had a video capture assistant? What if you had a note-taking assistant with you? And all of those things are now available to you because of AI enhancements. There's a really cool, I don't have it on me today, but there's a really cool little tool. It's called Applaud, P-L-A-U-D, Applaud, P-L-A-U-D. And it's like a little necklace, or you can wear it as a wristband that actually take notes while you're talking, and it'll give you a complete summary that you can just literally type up and send to them, and it can automatically send out your guests to this little summary of what they do after every single time you have a conversation. Even if you need to recap the entire conversation that you had, maybe that's good or bad depending on what you're talking about. But right, but the idea is it might be
a tool too.
You can just tell them and say, hey, you can turn it on and say, hey, I'm about to record what we're doing. I'm going to show you what we're doing. I'm going to describe it, and then I'm going to give you a full digital printout of everything you need to do with all the recommendations I make for you. And I'll give you a summary when we're done. That's now available to you where it wasn't before. So it's kind of like, and again, that's a $150 thing you buy on like Amazon. So, for that $150 thing that you can buy on Amazon, would you pay for a assistant to take notes for you for all your guests while you're doing that in the chair? Probably, right? It's like, it's a very inexpensive that would assistant.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's a lot of ways that stylists can leverage ChatGPT, but they just aren't thinking about it in those terms. And they're like, well, it's kind of complicated. Like, where do I upload the video and how does this happen? And they get really bogged down in the logistics. And I would say, number one, like, work in a group of people that are starting to play with it. When you have multiple stylists going, hey, here's how I'm using it. Here's how I'm using it. What could you do? What could I do? And you start playing with that as a team, it really starts to enhance, like, what are all the coolest ways you could use it? What I've found in working with most salon owners and stylists is they just need an excuse to kind of get a couple of ideas. And they're like, well, I tried it this way. I tried it that way. Like, for example, this is kind of a silly thing, but I was just noticing one of our mentors, Danielle Cherwick, and I want to give a post that she just said. She said, hey, Jason, it's been a really heavy week. Like, there's been a lot of things happening in the world this last week. And she said, I use this ChatGPT prompt that was really helpful for me. And I hope it'll gain some perspective on how awesome each of you are. It certainly made my day. And here's the prompt. It said, with all that you know about me, tell me something I might not know about myself. Okay. With all, and again, if you use ChatGPT all the time, this is very powerful. If you've never used it, please don't use this as your first prompt because it won't be helpful.
It won't know you.
Right. But if you use it all the time and you say, tell me with all you know about me, tell me something you don't know about myself. And everybody's response were like, you're this type of person, you're that. And it was very positive, very uplifting, very supportive. Now, I don't know about you, but how many stylists do you have working on your team that are probably hard on themselves and need a little pick me up, that need a little boost when they've had a heavy week or they're really, really suffering on the inside and going like, gosh, man, I just don't even have the maintenance. Like, and I'll share with you like how I use it. I have a son who's what's considered, I hate labeling, but I'm going to give him a label because it's a thing right now. He's what's considered a strong-willed kid. Like, this is a kid, when you make any sort of threat or any sort of bribe, he's like, none of that stuff works, right? If you're like, I'm going to take away your toys, he's like, fine, I'm going to burn them to the ground. Like, I'm like, oh, are you a serial killer? Like, what's the deal? And if I give him a bribe, he's like, you can't bribe me to get me to do things. Like, he's a sharp kid, and whatever you do, he just is immediately resistant to it, right? And I know there's a style in parenting of working with that resistant child. So I'm like, hey, I have what's considered to be a strong-willed kid. Here's my exact situation. Could you weigh in on how I need to respond to the situation? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it gives me this framework on how I can handle it and what I can do and what's going on. And I'm like, oh, it's just nice to hear it from somebody else. And this is what I want to get you to this point on ChatGPT. I was on the phone with one of our large salons that does like $6 million a year. She was on with us today, and she said, have you ever just gone, you've told your team something over and over again, and she said, we took our leadership team to another very large salon, and they heard the other salon owners saying all these things that they're doing. And she's like, I've been asking to do these things for months and months and months. And they're like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then we went to this other salon. They said all these things they're doing, and they literally came back like, you know what we need to do? We need to do da, 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 da. And she's like, those are all the things I've been asking to do for the last 6 months. But she goes, sometimes it's like they just can't hear it from you, and they need to hear it from somebody else. Well, this is my big pin I want to put in ChatGPT for you. When their self-driven learning is coming from their interaction with ChatGPT, it feels very different than when you give them advice.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of how I educate and how I train is like, I want them to have their own self-discovery. And so what ChatGPT is really leveraging is themselves to have some self-discovery. So if they had a client in the chair that was really difficult and they were like, man, I had a really hard time, like, getting them to talk or having them share their opinions with me or like really tell me what they wanted. And they go, hey, chat, I just had a guest in my chair who I asked a bunch of questions and it really seemed like they were putting me off and they were distressed that day and yada, yada, yada. And here's the problems that I'm having with that. And like, could you give me some coaching so I could be better the next time that guest sits in my chair? And they see the answer from chat and like, wow, that was actually really helpful and insightful because they perceive that ChatGPT isn't biased towards them. Like if they ask the owner, they're like, you're just telling me that because you want me to make more money. But when they ask chat, they're like, chat doesn't make more money if they make more money as a stylist. Now, ChatGPT makes more money if they have good answers, you'll come back and use it again. So it's actually incentivized differently to just give you the best answers possible that actually get you the results so you use it more often. So it's perceived as one of the most trusted resources that you can potentially have, which is why a lot of younger generation people in their teens and their 20s are literally leaning on it for every decision because they're like, man, this is so unbiased, it's so unfiltered, it's so whatever. And the joke is like, they're saying like, hey, I'm dating this person and should I, go on this date? Should I not? They're like asking for advice on everything, which I think can be dangerous.
Yeah,
but,
seriously.
But the idea is that it's a great way for them to self-learn and self-educate.
Yeah.
Right?
Opening a new salon or remodeling? Feeling overwhelmed? We've got you. At Collins, we custom build salon equipment made just for you in Tennessee, with local reps and designers to guide you from layout to delivery. Explore at collins.co/HPSA.
So if they go, hey, I had 3 guests today, and you have to teach them how to prompt it. I had 3 guests today. One of them bought retail, 2 of them didn't. And I did the exact same thing with both. What could you help me figure out what I'm doing wrong? And if you come from that place, very different. If you teach them like, hey, if you're struggling, why don't you ask chat for the first answer of your question before you go to another stylist, before you figure it out, and say, hey, could you ask me 5 questions about the experiences that I did today with my guests that were in the chair that would help me determine where I went wrong in the consultation experience to prevent them from purchasing retail. Again, quality of questions determines the quality of result. If you ask a bad question, hey, chat, why didn't I sell retail today? Useless. But if you go, hey, I had 3 guests. Here was the context. Here's what happened. And that's the whole thing. You tell it what happened. You tell it what you want. And then you say, could you ask some questions to give me a good answer? Let it ask you 3 or 4 questions. Answer those 3 or 4 questions. And then say, once you have the answers to the questions, please let me know where I went wrong and how I could be better. Yeah. Very different way to improve. And like Kayla, you and the rest of the office, like we use this all the time, right? I'm like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm trying to figure it out. How can you help me? And the more context you give it and the more content you can provide it, the more quality output it will provide you. And I just think it's like having a coach in your pocket. It's like, and I say that as a coach, like I'm cool if my clients are asking ChatGPT first and they're like, hey, here's where I'm at. Do you have any other advice? Do you have any experience on this? Because it can give you generic advice, but it can't help you make the decision all the time. It'll give you some generic advice. And I'm just like, look, I'm totally fine because I want you to use that as your first line of defense. And let me continue to enhance and like push you even harder and go even further. I don't think well, I shouldn't say ever, but I think it's gonna be a long time before it replaces my complete position. But same for you as the owner, you want it to be able to be an assistant to you. And that's how I would see it. It's like it is designed to be an assistant for your staff and an assistant for you. Likewise, if you're using ChatGPT on your own, maybe you have a hard call. Like I had a client who emailed us and they were irate about something. And it was something that they assumed it was a certain way. And we weren't clear about it. And they made an assumption. They're like, I'm so mad that da-da-da-da. And I was like, dang it. And everybody's like, how do we respond to this? And I said, I literally just took a screenshot of the message, put it in ChatGPT. And I was like, hey, here's what's going on. Obviously, I want this client to be happy. I want them to not be mad at us. And I wanted to simply explain what happened. Here's what happened. How do we respond? And it gave me a response. And by the way, don't ever use a first response. If you're using first response, people are going to notice, right? And so the first response was a little canned. It was a little generic. It was like, I really appreciate your opportunity to bring this to light for me. And I found that the da-da-da, and you're like, all these very formal things. And if you cut and paste that first response and send it back, they're like, why did you go to ChatGPT and send me that response? This is so unpersonal, so whatever. So then I did the second thing, which I said, all right, can you make this sound a little bit more casual, a little more personal, and match my style? And I want them to really feel like from me, I took the time to listen to them without being overly formal and overly impersonal. And it wrote it up again. And I was like, that's something I would say.
Yes.
That's more of like, and I was like, man, it removed the emotion from my response. It was actually really smart with what it said. I did have to modify one thing because I disagreed with one part of it, but like I was still in it. And I think it, like, you still have to humanize the robot. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta give it a little zhuzh before it's all robot speak. But if you can do that as a stylist, like how do you handle a difficult conversation? How do you deal with a client who continues to cancel on you in your chair? How do you potentially approach retail with a client who's always said they never want to buy it from you? And those are some great first steps in coaching that I think right now AI can get your stylist to start paying attention to. And that just changes the game when you use AI that way inside your salon.
Are you ready to increase your retention and revenue and convert website traffic to clients? Then you're ready for Maya. Maya creates better business relationships by pairing the right clients with the right beauty professionals. Use promo code HPSA for your first 2 months free. Visit joinmaya.com to get started.
Totally. Man, that's so powerful. And I hope as you're listening to this, you took some notes on terms of how you could be utilizing AI in yourself as well.
Hopefully.
And even like, I know some people are like, well, you know, I should know all these things too. But even like AI can be a like further your education, and it just is a tool to utilize. And so getting people out of their head on those things is really important too.
Yeah.
And it's Jason, I wanted to ask you too. So I know people are going to be listening and they're going to say, well, how do I start that conversation? Because I want to share with my team how to utilize that. And those tools are really, really amazing. Yeah. How do I even
Super good question. I would have an AI meeting is what I would do.
Nice.
I would have an AI meeting and I would say, hey guys, I want to have a whole AI meeting and I want to find out like, what are your feelings on AI? Where are you at with AI? And like, how are you currently using it if you're using it all? And I would just start literally with that. Because if you roll out a meeting like, hey, everybody, I want to tell you how to use AI so that I don't have to coach you anymore. Like, I was telling you what's in it for you, which is you don't have to coach them. That's not how you tell your team about it. That's not what we're doing. We're going to go say, hey, I want to just find out about AI. I want to see, you can just say this. I was listening to this interesting podcast. And they were talking about stylists using AI inside the salon in unique and creative ways. So I'd like to actually put a list together of ways you might be using AI that we don't know about so we can share those ideas with each other. Would you be willing to do it? And you literally get a bunch of stickies and you hand them out to everybody and you say, hey, can everybody write down how you're using AI? And we're going to go over to the wall and everybody put your sticky down. And when you put your sticky on the wall, tell me how you're using AI in your personal life and in business. And somebody says, I'm using it for meal prep. I'm using it for fitness plans. I'm using it for that. I'm using it for this. And you're like, great. Is anybody using AI in the salon in an interesting way? Man, I used it for color formulas. I used it for this. I used it for, ways to position this to my guests. I use it for that. And all of a sudden you start introducing the ideas. And now all of a sudden people are going, oh, well, that's really interesting. That's like 5 ways I hadn't thought about using AI. Because we are still in like the very infancy stage of AI. Like it's moving really fast. I think, but it's crazy to think we're just in the beginning phase. Yeah. Like we haven't moved to Terminator yet. Terminator's at least a year away. But like we're still in the infancy of what's going on. And so people are experimenting, people are playing. And the more you can be curious, and that's such a like important word when you're dealing with your team, is for you to have curiosity of how they are currently using it. And you might be surprised to know that your staff is running circles around you with how they use AI. So for you to be arrogant enough to think that you're going to go teach them how to do something when they might need to be teaching you, seriously. Right? It's like, let them put the things on the wall. Let them talk about what the way in which they're doing it. And then from there, you can then, if you have extra things, which hopefully you don't, like I hope literally that you're like, oh my God, that blew me away. But let's say though.
Are you still guessing what your color services are actually costing you? Guessing the cost of your services is eating into your profits. With Salon Scale, you can separate your parts from your labor and charge for every drop of color used. Stop letting your back bar drain your earnings. Click the link in the description to get 10% off of your first year or start your free trial today. Salon Scale. Profit starts with every mix.
That, you've got a couple of ideas they haven't put out there and you've heard some on the podcast because, the only reason why I even think about this many things, we have hundreds of people in our academy and they throw ideas at me all the time and I'm hearing from them. And like, that's not my brain. It's not like I'm just so smart. I can't see straight and I did that. It's literally, we have hundreds of accounts and clients that we work with that tell us the things they're doing. And I'm just like, I borrow from there and borrow from there and borrow from there. And my job is to be a conduit from that entire group to you through this podcast to share with you some incredible ways people are using it. And you probably have 50 other ways I didn't even mention on here. And please share those in the comment section of the podcast. If you're watching the video and you want to be able to put it down below, or I don't know, send me a message and be like, hey, Jason, I really enjoyed your podcast on chat, but you didn't mention this way. And here's how I'm using it. I'd love to know, because the more you tell me, the more I can share, the more I can give, the more value I can give to other people. Right.
Yeah.
And so use the collaboration of the group, even if your staff is only 3, even your staff is 10, even your staff is 100 or 600. Do it in little subsets, do it in your little pods, and ask the question. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you have any other type of company, your spa, your barbershop, whatever, just trust that your people are probably using it very differently. And I would venture to guess most of them are only using it basically. And if they only come up with one or two things, they're like, I only use it to like write my emails for me, or I only use it when I need to like respond to an angry text message. Okay, well then let's take it a little further. And that's your opportunity to go, great, I have an opportunity to take this further with what I've learned from the podcast or other places. And I like to teach more people about it. And so then you can, now you've exhausted what they know, now you may contribute your information, but only after you know what they know. And most people try to teach without finding out what the group knows. You deserve to teach after finding out what they know already.
Yeah, because they might have some ideas to be like, or they'll close off because be like, I already know this. And so you're not teaching me something new. But inviting that collaboration, like, I'm just curious of where you're at. One thing I love about ChatGPT too is like, I don't have to utilize, like once they gives me a response, I don't have to utilize that. And so it's almost like I can have a private conversation, get some context, move around, ask questions, re-prompt it, re-ask more things. And then I can either be like, no, not using any of that, or utilize what it comes up with. Yeah. And it gives me an opportunity to have that autonomy as somebody who's trying to build my own career and be like, okay, I have this idea. Let me noodle it out with ChatGPT before I put it into action. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. And as your ChatGPT gets to know you, like Jason mentioned earlier, it'll get easier and easier as it's getting to know your job, your position, how you act, what kind of clients you have, who are you seeing the most often. And so the more you implement with ChatGPT, the more you're utilizing it, honestly, the best, it'll get better and better. And be like, even ask it, be like, hey, I'm a stylist, I work this often, I'm doing these things, how would you recommend I utilize you throughout my week? How can I use you 3 ways? Because it'll even tell you that, how to utilize it in itself. And that's like, just get a place to start and ask the question and then start that conversation. I love what you just said, Jason. I want to make sure everybody heard that, is invite your staff to be a part of the conversation and learn what they know first, because they want to, because it is a new and exciting thing. And it's been out for like, what, 2 years now? I don't even know. It's been out for a hot minute, but it's still, like you said, it's still in the beginning stages. We have no idea what's coming.
Super early.
Yeah. And so being able to be, everybody has used it to some form or heard of a way of using it to some form. So starting the conversation there will be a good way to get your staff into it, because I know some people have that resistance. I also want to make sure you guys heard when Jason said about it, when your team will go to ChatGPT, they'll like listen to it more, because not only are they a part of that process, but they don't feel like somebody's telling them what to do. Exactly. Going back to the beginning of
it's
like,
how do you,
exactly. You're leveraging ChatGPT for their career, and it's in it for them. And that external motivation that we've talked about a lot on this podcast of there's a big difference between getting them to internally be motivated to further their career with a tool that is so unlimited almost to what it can do and how it can support you in your life, personally, professionally, all of the above. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's one other thing I want to say that came up on a call. We were just doing what's called a Little Voice Mastery 2 program. So we have Little Voice Mastery 1, Little Voice Mastery 2. And on Little Voice Mastery 2, we put people in groups and we help them work together. And one of the things they do every week in that group is they work on, a morning ritual and a morning routine. And they also build out their own affirmations. Okay. So one of the things they work on is affirmations. And I thought it was great. One of the gals who was on, shout out to Nikki for this one. Nikki was like, she's like, I love my affirmations. I used to write a lot of them. But what I did is I actually said into ChatGPT, I said, here's some affirmations. What would be other good affirmations for me to say every single day, understanding that, here's my job, here's my position, here's what I want to do, and I want to move in this direction. What would be some good affirmation for me to say out loud? And she got some suggestions, and she was like, they were really good. She's like, because it knows a lot about me and what my mindset is around certain topics. And so it actually created a custom set of affirmations that would be helpful based on all the input that it had.
Ready to transform your business and improve your salon's profitability? With Lonza's 3-in-1 technology and intermixable shades, your hair color inventory is streamlined with limitless creativity behind the chair. Click the link below to unveil the secret to salon success.
And I'm like, that's brilliant, right? It's like, can you give me and if you just said that, if you use ChatGPT all the time, you can just say, hey, I want a list of 5 daily affirmations that would help me with my mindset you've experienced with me and talking with you over the course of however long. Like, it's just a great resource. And I say that because that's a personal development exercise, right? Is like, if you just want some recommendations or some suggestions or just some ideas, it'll get you started and it'll get you in a flow.
Yeah.
I'll give you one other one. My wife and I are doing a Bible study right now, and we had to come up with like an icebreaker. And I'm like, we need to just like, let's put this in. We just said, hey, we're looking for an icebreaker for this Bible study group that we're doing right now. And like, could you give me 10 ideas of an icebreaker? And it gave a bunch of ideas of what we were looking for. And I'm like, that third one sounds really good. We'll modify it a little bit. But like, it was perfect. And it was like, just even having the idea, sometimes the creativity needs to be sparked by something. And then my creativity can crank up that spark and turn it into a roaring fire. And I think sometimes that creativity spark can come from you, and then it turns into a little bit of a bigger idea, and then it moves into something even better. And again, just use it. It's a bionic enhancement. Like, again, if I couldn't walk and I could have legs that were bionic enhancements and I could just move again, that would be everything. So if you feel stuck, you feel stalled, you feel whatever, just say, hey, could you brainstorm 10 ideas for me? And even all 10 ideas are poop. Give me 10 more. And like, it's not going to be like, ugh, you didn't like my first 10?
Never,
okay.
You'll never do that.
It's like, no, I got you. Like, here's 10 more. What do you think? Or tell me more direction or give me more context. And like, or ask me 10 questions of what I'm looking to achieve in my icebreaker game. And then give me 10 ideas from there. And once you do that, it can absolutely transform. The way in which you brainstorm, the way in which you work, because again, it's more self-guided learning than anything else.
I love that. And one of the things I wanted to bring up too is, as a salon owner, if you're implementing AI, maybe you're deep into this and you're like, yeah, we already got all of that. Like, you can also build templates. Like, there's different AI tools that you can build templates for your salon, that it's a standard that all your stylists will end up using, all your service providers use. Yes, exactly. Where you put in, so then like you're talking about earlier, Jason, on this is my client coming in, this is what they need, like help me like map this out, where then they just implement the information. There's like a pre-prompt, and then they put into their client specifically, and you can make tools that your team can utilize on a daily, weekly basis. And so just knowing that where you're at with it, there's so much more to go with it. So keep exploring it and keep it, because this is such a big part of our world. And especially if you have stylists who've been out of school for multiple years, they're not learning as much about the AI world that's in there. So if you
they're not, especially if you have experienced stylists,
you
have your slightly older stylists that are like not using it. They're like, I don't need to do that. And it's tricky, man. Is that obviously it's very native for your younger stylists. They're probably using it very, very easily. But as you start to get older and older, and your stylist, like, I don't know, I'm not really needed. Why do I need to do that? I'm a stylist. I don't need to pay attention to that kind of stuff. And like, I don't need to use it for anything. And I would just say, literally day by day, our clients are coming up with new ways to use AI that you've never thought of before. And even as we're talking, I'm like, oh, it'd be a really good one. Oh, it'd be a really good one. Like, my brain is just inventing them. So like, you could do a custom GPT if you want to do like stylist bios to put on your website and be like, hey, what are 10 questions I need to ask my staff that would create great bios for them to add to our website? Ask me the 10 questions. Then you can put in a custom GPT and say, hey, Kayla, go onto our custom GPT, answer all the questions that it will prompt you one question at a time, and then have it write up the bio for your website that already uses all the SEO hooks and the words that need to be in there, and the keywords that need to be there in order to be more searchable on the website. And like, now all of a sudden, what used to take you hours and hours and days, weeks and weeks, or whoever you have to hire to do it, you have done in like 10 minutes. You have all of these staff bios written. And like, that's just on the small scale of things that are leveraging, and again, using your bionic superpower, aka AI and ChatGPT, to create some just really powerful tools. So anyway, I hope these have been helpful resources.
So good. Yeah. And I'm inspired too. I was like, man, I could have used it that way too.
I know, but like, I'm learning from the team, man. The team keeps showing me different ways to use it, and I'm using it, and the clients are using it. I'm like, we're just all learning together as fast as humanly possible.
Which speaks to get your team involved, get them learning from each other, get them all like, make it fun, make it an exciting thing that they're all bringing something to the table. Man, that's so fun. Love this conversation. Thanks for hanging out, Jason. Always fun to talk about AI and have you on the podcast. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Share this with your team if you want. And we can't wait to hear how you have implemented this into your salon. Let us know. Reach out to us anywhere, social media, Instagram, all those fun things. And thank you for hanging out with us on today's Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Nice. You've been listening to the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and check us out at ProfitableSalon.com for more episodes, content, and to help you turn your salon into the business you've always dreamt of.